Okay, we're live, baby, but we're letting it breathe because we got to get Facebook up in here. Lots to discuss. Golly, what a day it has been at Broncos HQ, and it looks like we're just about ready to get started, and we're good. So, welcome in, everybody. It is the Huddle Up podcast, presented, as always, by Mile High Huddle, powered by Blue Wire Podcasts. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest, you know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, George Paton was not kidding around when he said it was going to be an exhaustive, thorough search. I mean, while we're broadcasting tonight, it wouldn't surprise me if a report of one or two more interviews gets scheduled because there have been 7 requests reported anyway of the Denver Broncos for candidates. Your thoughts?
8 requests. They requested to meet with Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, which I'm not too crazy about. But that's the point I wanted to make, Chad. In the 2019 head coach search, which was John Elway's last, they interviewed 5 candidates in total. George Paton, through one day, is already up to 8 requests in his first GM search. You talk about casting a wide net. That's exactly what you're doing. One thing I've come to really love about Paton is that he follows through on what he says. He's the opposite of Vic Fangio in the sense that it's not just words, it's action as well. He says they're going to be thorough. He's going to target the best man for the job, the best leader, and he's going to find that among the bunch. Needle in the haystack. It could be where they meet with 9 or 10. Byron Leftwich is out there. Leslie Frazier's out there. Doug Peterson's out there. Yeah. They could go up to 11 interviews, but 8 so far right now. I like to point out that 4 of them come from the best offenses in the NFL, and Paton spoke at length on Sunday about making the offense a priority, devoting more resources and allocating more resources to the offense. He recognized the problem pretty much starts there, and it starts with the coaching, so no coincidence with George Paton, all action, and I love what I see so far.
Well, with that said, really quick, let's do a once over and make sure those who are with us who have maybe not kept track here with the uber convenient one-stop shop MHH Broncos head coaching interview tracker. As Zach just mentioned, right before we're going live, news broke of one additional name going on here, but here's what we got so far, all right? Jared Mayo, inside linebackers coach, New England Patriots. George Paton requested an interview. Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator, Dallas Cowboys, requested an interview. Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator, Dallas Cowboys. Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator, Green Bay Packers. Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator, Kansas City Chiefs. Jonathan Gannon, defensive coordinator, Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, missed me on that one too. Kevin O'Connell, 36-year-old offensive coordinator of the LA Rams. And then the newest name, Aaron Glenn, who is the defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. And it's funny that name just must have come out because I heard Adam Schefter earlier today kind of bandying about his name as a don't be surprised if. Did the report come from Schefter?
I think it was Tom Pelissero who might have reported it. I'm not sure about the exact who broke that story. But I'm not wild about the idea of entertaining another first-time defensive-oriented head coach. It's one thing if you want to go after someone like Dan Quinn, who at least had prior head coaching experience. But someone like Aaron Glenn or Jared Mayo, I think it's Holden Mayo for me, Chad, because you go from positional coach to head coach, that's a pretty big leap. Maybe as defensive coordinator, but I would even consider Brian Flores, who was really shockingly to me let go today. I thought he had a really solid turnaround in Miami, fielded really good defenses. My ideal would be Nathaniel Hackett as head coach and Brian Flores as defensive coordinator, but I realize we don't live in that kind of world. But I just would stay away from defensive guys. You tried that 2 times. I think George Paton realizes with 4 offensive-minded guys, that's where the league is trending, and you have to keep up with that. The Broncos finally have a general manager that gets that. Elway did not get that in 2017. He did not get it in 2019. George Paton gets that in 2022.
Dude, I totally missed that Aaron Glenn is the same Aaron Glenn, former first-round pick,
former Jets
Texas A&M. New York Jets, exactly, 94 through 01, Texans 02, and then played for the Cowboys, Jags, and Saints as well. As a coach, this is the highest position he has held with the Detroit Lions as defensive coordinator. Before that, it was a defensive backs coach for 5 years with the New Orleans Saints. and then a couple of years as Cleveland's assistant DB's coach. So, he's intriguing. He's 49. But again, I think you can kind of see, first of all, George Paton's done a pretty good job up to this point of reaching out to candidates from kind of covering all the bases, right? You got multiple offensive guys, you got multiple defensive guys, you got one retread only so far that we know about that the Broncos have made overtures to, and that is, of course, Dan Quinn, who I just don't understand why people are gushing about Dan Quinn. I know you and Scott are like, hey, if it comes to Dan Quinn, that's not a gift horse. If the Broncos end up hiring him, it's not a gift horse you look in the mouth per se. But like, that dude does not get me excited at all. Let me tell you who does get me excited. Kellen Moore, a little bit.
Yes.
Kevin O'Connell, a lot of it. All right. And a little bit Eric Bieniemy. I'm actually a little bit surprised the Broncos reached out to Bieniemy just because some rumors of how his exploits at CU, down in Boulder, how they resolved as a player back in the day. Of course, one of the most prolific backs in CU history. Those names get me excited. Gannon, nah. Glenn, I'm intrigued. I need to learn a little bit more about Glenn. But whatever George Paton does, Zach, stay away from Mike Zimmer as a head coach candidate.
Yeah.
And by the way, his best buddy and former boss, Rick Spielman,
done.
They fired him and Zimmer in Minnesota. So it looks like George Paton, man, he jumped ship just in the nick of time.
Yeah, he did. And, I wouldn't be surprised maybe if Rick Spielman joins the Broncos front office in like a consulting role, an advisory role, just for George Paton to extend a life raft to him. I'm not wild about Dan Quinn, certainly not over the likes of Kellen Moore, Nathaniel Hackett, but I just love his personality. I want to point out two things that were mentioned today alone. Dan Quinn getting ready for the playoff game on Sunday against the 49ers wildcard round. He was asked about teams that are showing interest, including the Broncos, in him. His priority right now, and I quote, just kicking ass and being right where my feet are. I mean, just it's so refreshing after 3 years of Vic Fangio for someone to speak that freely and that honestly, and I think people relate to that, and it resonates with a lot of people as well. Someone also pointed out, who covers the Cowboys, David Hellman, the Cowboys defense forced a takeaway in 13 of 17 games this season. They forced multiple takeaways in 12 of them. They only had consecutive games without a turnover one time. That's important, and that's something I've been harping on for quite a while in the Vic Fangio era. For all the talent they have on defense, the Justin Simmons of the world, Shelby Harris, Draymond Jones, etc., Patrick Surtain, they don't force enough takeaways. They're not a defense that creates havoc and wreaks havoc like a Dan Quinn defense. So it's not my first choice at all. I want an offensive guy above most all else. But if they're going to go defense, I like Dan Quinn a hell of a lot more than I do Aaron Glenn, Jonathan Gannon, or Mike Zimmer, for that matter.
Zach, here in just a second, I am going to ask you, of the candidates here, all right, that we know the Denver Broncos have requested interviews with, which one fans should get the most excited about? But first, we got to say hello to the presenting sponsor of tonight's live stream podcast, and that is Manscaped. It's cheers to 2022 resolutions. Let's hope that you can actually keep. But how about, gang, having clean and shiny nether regions all year long? Our sponsors at Manscaped are here to save your below the belt game this year and make the ball drop in 2022 the cleanest and maybe the sexiest ever. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. You go to manscaped.com, use the code MHH for 20% off plus free shipping.
Yeah, it's a new year, new me with the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming. This year, take your package to the next level with their Performance Package 4.0 and brand new Ultra Premium Body Wash as well. Chad, they really do have great products. I'm holding one in my hand, and some of our viewers might remember the Manscaped promos from earlier on in the podcast. We still love the product. We still use the product. We support the product. I don't have to, now that Vic Fangio is fired, pull my hair out on my head. And with Manscaped, I don't have to worry about pulling hairs out below the belt as well, because this takes care of that, Chad, effortlessly, very, very easily, and very pleasurably as well. So I can't recommend Manscaped enough, and I know you do as well.
Let me tell you guys something. For Christmas, I've got 2 post-puberty sons, 119, 116. I know I might not look old enough to have children that old, but I got each of them one of these, and they thanked me for it many times over. And one of the coolest things, Zach, that has developed since last we had Manscaped as a sponsor is they came out with their ultra premium body wash. And let me tell you something. It's a body wash. Dudes are used to using body washes. It is what it is. But what maybe you're not used to is your wife or your lady complimenting, hey, you use a different soap. Hey, I like that. And suddenly the chemistry might little shift, maybe just a little bit. All right. But guys, get 20% off and free shipping with the code MHH at Manscaped. That's 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code MHH. It's new year, new you at manscaped.com.
That's not what it says, but
I can't say it.
We're
dude.
a PG-13 show around these parts.
I'm not going to say it, but we love Manscaped.
We do.
There's certain things I just can't say on this podcast. It's a family-friendly podcast. We love Manscaped, though. If I didn't love Manscaped, gang, I would not be rocking this here T-shirt. Zach, of the candidates that we know the Denver Broncos have contacted and shown an interest, who should Broncos fans be the most stoked on and hopes sitting on the edge of their chair that this is who will take the job?
Chad, can you do me a favor, please? Can we go share screen and pull up my Twitter for a second? Because Nikki Jubvala in October tweeted a clip of what she called the Nathaniel Hackett experience. I just want to, it's a 30-second video, and I want to show you guys how he teaches and how he connects with his players. It is quite astonishing in a good way. And I always held in my regard, Chad, in school, if you have a teacher that you like, you tend to learn a lot more from that teacher. You remember more, you retain more, you have more fun in that class. Just watch Nathaniel Hackett teach his players.
All right, let me pull up the share screen here. Did the sound come through just barely, by the way? Did you hear that?
I heard it, yeah.
All right.
Now, we're going to talk about a show, snap, shrink. So we're going to do a 7-step drop. Because we want to be great actors, we're going to show the ball. Hey, here's the ball, I'm handing it off. And then we're going to snap the ball in, and then we're going to shrink down. Everybody with me on that? Because we want to be dramatic. We want the defense to go, oh my God, I think he's handing the ball off. Oh my gosh, no, he's not. Downtown. You know what I mean? So that's what we're going to do. It looks like this. Show it, snap it, and shrink. Everybody see that? 7-step drop, 8 to the left, 7 to the right. We're going to go under center too. I'm so excited. Now, we're going to talk about show, snap, shrink.
Let me just tell you something.
Dude, this guy gets stoked, Zach, about fake handoffs. You got to dig that.
Do you ever think Pat Shurmur stood up in a meeting, says we're going to go under center, I'm so excited, and laugh like he had physical pleasure from that? That's what Aaron Rodgers was talking about when he endorsed Nathaniel Hackett for Falcons head coaching job that went to Arthur Smith. He talked about the energy when he walks into a room. He talks about the player relatability. He talks about the easy to digest scheme and how he gets everyone on the same page. And you're seeing it right there. I love going from so passive, hands-on, crossed on your chest like that, to Pat Shurmur looking dazed and confused in the press box, to having someone stand up there and just connect with the players like that and bring that life back to the team. We didn't see it on the sideline. We didn't see it in the play. I think Nathaniel Hackett, one of the reasons why I think he's deserving of the job is for what you just saw there.
I want to talk more about that, but first, Clado Tornado has been very, very patient. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. He says, honestly, when I saw we went for Jared Mayo, first, I felt disappointment, but then it was followed with great suitors. And can I say, unlike politicians, when George says he's going to do something, he does it. Great suitors. I'm not sure what he means by that. But listen, Jared Mayo, who knows? Maybe he's the next exception that proves the rule that Belichick disciples can't get her done outside the safe, comfy environs of Foxborough. Name me one, and there have been more than I can count of or think of, Belichick disciple who's had sustained success besides Mike Vrabel. Maybe Bill O'Brien, you could say he did win the AFC South at least once before he was canned. Besides him, I mean, Romeo Crennel, retread. As far as head coaches, right? Josh McDaniels, I mean, need I say more on that front? Brian Flores, there are many things to like about Brian Flores. But if you listen to what Mike Kliss said, why, like you said, why, I'm kind of surprised he got canned. Well, according to Mike Kliss, the word on the street of 9 News, the word on the street is Brian Flores, very difficult, made coming into work not very fun for a lot of people. Standoffish with players, authoritarian with players.
Who does that sound like?
I know, but also undermining type things with his bosses up the old chain of command. So Brian Flores, another Belichick disciple, he'll get another swing at the plate. I have no doubt because he's, he does have a little bit of juice. That he does kind of have an energy about him. But is Gerard Mayo, and I know I just mispronounced his name the first time I mentioned it, but is Gerard Mayo that next exception? Is he that next Mike Vrabel? I have my doubts.
The thing about Flores, too, if you go read his blurb about his firing on Roto World or whatever they call themselves now, what's mentioned in that is that he ignored the offense for the most part and focused on defense. So he's almost like a Fangio. It's another guy that might be best suited maybe to be a defensive coordinator. I don't think the Broncos are looking in that direction. In terms of Mayo, he brings that excitement as well, like we just showed from Nathaniel Hackett. There's a video where he's just pumping up guys on the sideline, beating them on the shoulder pads. I just want some sort of energy and lifeblood in the building. But going from a positional coach under Bill Belichick, especially after failing with Josh McDaniels, mind you, jumping from positional coach to head coach, defensive-minded head coach at that, I just think after 2 swings at the plate and 2 misses, you have to go for the home run. And I think the home run lies in an offensive mind. If not Hackett, then maybe someone like, Kellen Moore, maybe someone like Kevin O'Connell. I think you have to explore that avenue. But what did George Payton tell us yesterday? I agree, and I think you do as well, and I think some of the comments have said the same thing. He follows through on his intentions. He said more than one time, the number one quality we're looking for is leadership. So among these 8 people, whoever comes in and demonstrates the most leadership and the most acuity to be the best leader, that's going to get the job for the guy. So we don't know who that is. It's not going to matter offense or defense. I wouldn't prefer Mayo, but if Peyton wants him, we got to support him.
Remind me, there's a little anecdote I want to share on Kellen Moore, but I want to grab Sam Bam first. Thank you for that very generous super chat, my friend. We still very much love you, look forward to you being in the chat, and really admire that profile pic that you're rocking there, big dog. Thank you. He says, does Sam Bam, the Peyton era is in full effect. I fully believe he will make the right decision for the next head coach. And let's hope we are not discussing who the next Broncos head coach will be until 20 plus years later after the hire is done. Denver Broncos for life. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Belichick. I don't know. Scott, you're a couple of 2-3 years older than me. Is there another head coach in recent memory that's been 20 plus? I mean, Shanny got 14. Was it 14? 15. 5, 6, 7. Anyway. Jeff Fisher was there felt like in Tennessee, Zach, for a millennia. I know Chuck Noll was in his joint in Pittsburgh for a long time. Tom Landry, long time. Gosh, even Marvin Lewis was in Cincy for a long, long time. But 20 plus years, hey, it's the dream. Zach, here's what I wanted to bring up to you. All right. Mike Fisher, who is a great friend of ours, he's the Mike Kliss of the Dallas market, all right? He publishes the Dallas Cowboys website for SI.com like we do for Sports Illustrated. He says the one misgiving he has about Kellen Moore, because if you look at pictures of Kellen Moore, I mean, go to the site right now and look at the tracker. I mean, I'll just bring it up, dude. I'll show you guys. The face, it's like a baby face. It's like he just learned how to shave yesterday, right? Like he's my 16-year-old son who just learned how to shave with Manscaped. Nice, dude. Pros. We're professionals here. All right. Mike Fisher, the Mike Kliss of the Dallas market, for those who might not know who Fish is. He says, if there's any misgiving he might have about Kellen Moore, Zach, it's that he worries whether or not he could stand up there as head coach and command the room. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, or I was thinking earlier, I was going to tweet this out there. The thing about Moore, you wonder how much of a leader of men he can be. If that's what George Payton wants, there's not much video or reports on Kellen Moore standing up there like Nathaniel Hackett did, or even someone like Gerard Mayo does, and just shows that energy or commands a room. He's a tremendous game planner, a tremendous schemer, and I think a really, really, really great game day play caller. But in terms of the rah-rah type or commanding all sides of the ball, that's another misgiving that I share with Mike Fisher as well.
More to come on this subject. Jonathan Figueroa in the house. It's great to see you, big dog. Thank you. He says, opinions on Locke with Hackett or Bieniemy. Also, Brian Flores with one of those two guys. Don't really like the Mayo guy. Not enough experience, in my opinion. Mayo. There's a reason Mayo has gone from position coach, and not too long ago, Pro Bowl linebacker. At 36 years old, he's a bona fide head coaching candidate. There's a reason why people are talking about him. There's a reason why front offices the league over are buzzing a little bit about Gerard Mayo. But I'm with you on that, Jonathan. He needs to percolate a little bit more. And again, how many times do NFL teams need to burn themselves tripping over each other to hire the next Belichick darling? I mean, just buyer beware on that. But to the point, Zach, of Locke under a Hackett or a Bieniemy, what's your take on that?
I mean, anyone but Pat Shurmur for someone like Drew Lock's talents. I mean, I think that could appeal to him. Kellen Moore is intriguing considering the game planning and the scheming, like I mentioned. I have it on my Twitter as well. His play designs are just so fun. It's like something of a 15-year-old out of Madden would do on a Saturday night, Chad. It's just so creative and so out there, but it works. I know for sure they would stretch out the playbook in terms of airing the ball out and taking advantage of Locke's dual threat abilities in terms of being a rusher like we saw in the season finale. You can make your case as to what candidate is the better quarterback whisperer, but that title gets thrown around so loosely. We were all fooled into believing Pat Shurmur was the quarterback whisperer. I truly believe, and it's not just me copping out, anyone but Pat, anyone but Vic would be a boon to Drew Lock's progress, just to play into his strengths and devise plays around what he can do best.
Listen, to be a little bit more specific, and Eddie, appreciate you, bro. He says, thank you for all your pods this season. Always here for us, just showing my appreciation. That's really sweet of you, big dog. I could have sworn that we were connected on Twitter, but I tried to tag you the other night after one of the shows, and I couldn't find an Eddie Vasquez on my Twitter. So if we are connected, do one of these in the mentions, okay? So I can remember what your handle is. But Zach, on the topic of how would Drew fare with a Hackett, with a Bieniemy, I think he would be great under either one. I'm a little more convinced in Hackett's resume, as far as, the number one consideration for me, QB whisperer, skins on the wall. Wow, Christopher, we're going to grab you 1 second. Then I am Bieniemy or Hackett, because Hackett right now, if he gets a head coaching job, Zach, he's living off, the production of a future Hall of Famer. And in the case of Bieniemy, the same. I mean, it's probably safe to say one day you're going to see Patrick Mahomes in the Hall of Fame. And when people talk about who gets the credit for the quickly microwaved development of Patrick Mahomes, people talk about Andy Reid for a reason. I talked to a source in Kansas City who said that things aren't perfectly bright and peachy between Bieniemy, Reid, Mahomes, and that the prize there that they want to protect is not Bieniemy, Mike Kafka. That's who they want to protect zealously, kind of earmarked as the Josh McDaniels of the Andy Reid regime. In other words, when Andy Reid, who is getting long in the tooth, hangs up his clipboard and rides off into the sunset, maybe Kafka being groomed to take over in the same sense that a Josh McDaniels is. But back to the question at hand, and then we're going to grab Christopher here. I think I concur with Zach's kind of broad analysis on just about any of these guys over Pat, but I think both of them, with the type of offenses, Zach, we've seen them coordinate and the success they've had with quarterbacks, it could only be a positive. Now, how big of a jump could Drew take under one of those guys? That's up for debate, but it could only be a positive.
But you can make the case that any of the candidates is a benefactor of another factor, that's going on with their team. You can argue Kevin O'Connell is a benefactor of having Sean McVay around him or being in that offense. You could say the same thing about Mayo being a benefactor from learning under Bill Belichick. There's always a way to put something down, and that you can always pick apart something. But I think the endorsement that he received from Aaron Rodgers and what you saw and what he brings, and learning under the best in Matt LaFleur, learning under the best in Aaron Rodgers, and just the new age way of thinking on offense. I mean, they're not that far away from being a really good, maybe top 10 offense in the NFL. It's not crazy to say. They have the pieces to do it. You get a better quarterback in there, a better offensive coordinator, play caller in there, good things are going to happen. And any of these guys would be an upgrade. It's a dart throw. Take your pick. It would be an upgrade over what they brought to the table with Vic Fangio and Pat Shurmur.
Christopher, and yes, it's like you pick the topic, pick the man, pick the candidate. You can, if you look long enough, if you look hard enough, you can and will find a hole in the boat. And that's why the negative Nancy's and the glass half empty types, they're always going to find that hole in the boat. Christopher Gaspari, wow, dude. Living large, throwing down from the top rope.
Thank you.
Quickly endearing himself as a Mile High Huddle Super Chat superstar. High in the rankings. You're going to remain top 5 in the Super Chat rankings in the month of January with that, my friend. Thank you so much. Up in Canada, too. He says, what is up, Priest? I am so damn excited about the deep search that is underway for our future coaching staff. The names that are being thrown around leave me feeling tingly all inside. ... Love it. State of being. MHH for life. Hashtag preach. You exemplify that hashtag, my friend. Appreciate you. Broncos country, not a geographic location. It's a state of being. Even up there north of the 49th parallel, baby. Appreciate you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. And I'm just as excited as you are. It's you feel like the culture really is changing. You feel like the tides really are turning. This isn't smoke and mirrors or mirage like we got fooled in 2017 and 2019. I think whoever George Payton picks will be the right guy. And you know what, Chad, on that point, it's so important not to get the most expensive guy, the flashiest guy, the most popular guy. It matters about getting the right guy. And I think Rich Bisaccia has proven that with the Las Vegas Raiders. Got them into the playoffs after what they've been through as a team. He's an interim special teams coordinator holding it down as head coach after John Gruden got fired, and their team is in the playoffs. That's what's so important about having the right guy on the sidelines, and I think George Payton will find that right guy.
By the way, Christopher, send us an email. All right, let us give you back a little small thank you. Let us send you some swag. All right, shoot us an email, milehighhuddle@gmail.com with your T-shirt size and your shipping address, and let us send you out a little thank you. And Julio, appreciate you, my friend. Good to see you on Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, real quick, update on where things stand on the contest as we reach for 250,000 stars in the month of January. We are at 26% complete. When we reach that goal in the month of January, we're going to raffle off a Broncos jersey of your choosing. And by the way, if you're listening, whether live or after the fact, Ethan, a.k.a. the DWI guys, your Patrick Surtain jersey arrived at MHH Central today. All right, so I'm going to package that bad boy up tomorrow, FedEx it to you across the pond, FYI. But we're going to be raffling off a Broncos jersey to the winner of this particular month, January. The only people in the running, those who are contributing to the goal. Right now, Joe Spath. Wait, Spath. It was Spath, right, Scott? It's Spath, not Spath. Joe Spath holds the most tickets in the hat, followed by Michael Ronquillo, Miguel, Tim Hoffman, Shane, the Aviator, Travis Weber, Doug Raquel, Jermaine, still maintaining top 10. Love seeing that big dog. Andrew Baker, number 9. Pete Middleton, and then a few of the names just outside the top 10, but are going to have plenty of tickets in the hat. Nonetheless, appreciate you guys. Thank you. I got one here from Jeremy. It says, as a true Broncos fan from BSU to Denver, I want Kellen Moore. MHH for life, Broncos for life. He's very intriguing. And when I say that, an insider there in Dallas has misgivings about whether or not he can command a room, you got to remember, it's one of those things where, Zach, you don't know till a guy is in that position, really. It's kind of like, no atheists in foxholes. You don't know how you're going to behave. You don't know how a guy's going to act until what hits the fan. But as a former quarterback, this is not a guy who is unfamiliar, Zach, with the management of expectations, leadership, intangibles. I don't worry about it so much, but he's not a Nathaniel Hackett, right? He's not a let me literally pour out my passion to you in the most animated way possible of selling a handoff, fake handoff. Maybe that's not Kellen Moore's shtick. And I don't say shtick as any kind of dismissive thing about Hackett. He's going to maybe have his own style, but I like him as a candidate. I'm stoked the Broncos are turning over that rock.
He's also, we have to remember, is a person, and he's 33 years old. He's still a kid, especially in this business, Chad. So he's growing into himself, and he learned under a confidant named Jason Garrett. And that's a confidant that's good in terms of knowing the ropes in the NFL, but you don't want that Garrett style to rub off on Kellen Moore because that's not ever going to get you over the hump, similar to how the Cowboys never got over the hump with Jason Garrett. Again, he would be a tremendous upgrade on what they had. He's a fantastic play caller, so creative. I just don't know. I cover that team, and I never really have seen a profile on a Kellen Moore going crazy like that in a meeting or on the sideline, or him being overly jubilant on the sideline. When there's a big play in Dallas, he'll fist pump, he'll smile, he'll congratulate Dak Prescott. He's not jumping up and down. So it's all different strokes for different folks. What flavor of coach do you want? Do you want a more passive guy? Do you want a rah-rah guy? I just think a little lifeblood injected into Death Valley, into this team, would do him very well.
Energy, baby. VAMC, Vamp, appreciate you, buddy. Thank you, Chad and Zach, for all the updates. Showing here some appreciation, and it's Peyton season. Go MHH. Go Denver Broncos for life. Love it. Cody Dub, you the man. Appreciate you, buddy. He says Kellen Moore is exciting. Yes, he is. Shout out to Clayton. Good to see you in the chat, big dog. The queen in the hizzy. Mount Rushmore superstar here at MHH. Christy is in the house. Thank you so much. She says, we finally won. LOL. Glad to see that Peyton had the same thought as most fans about Vic. Hoping the next choices made will be what we finally need to become a winning team again. Love. Thanks always, guys. We love you too. You know this, Christy. Thank you so much. Keeping the lights on. And, we appreciate that. And yes, you don't have to wonder and worry. Does George Payton have eyes to see? Does he have ears to hear? Does he have fingers to Turns out this dude doesn't need the sixth sense to deduce Vic Fangio wasn't it, Zach.
He harped on leadership. He harped on someone not focusing on, just one side of the ball, not giving the entire team his attention. He went out of his way to commend Vic for being a great coach, and he even said, no, I don't mean Vic, in other words, during his press conference. So he did say outwardly and publicly what he wants, and what he explained is quite plainly the opposite of Vic Fangio. So he has a brain too, Chad, to go along with what you were saying, and it was turning, and he can realize that, like you said, Vic ain't it. But thank you so much, Christy. We love you. We appreciate you forever.
Amen. Andrew Baker, what's up, big dog? He says, with Locke as the floor, we could do a lot worse. If we don't get a Rodgers or Wilson, we should hopefully have a legit contest between a journeyman or a QB in the draft with the let them hate coming back. Hashtag MHH for life. Thank you for those stars, bro. Big love. We really appreciate you. Seriously, Andrew, you the man, big dog.
I would want let him hate to come back so I can make that a thing again, Chad, not just a t-shirt. It just depends on how the incoming coach feels about Drew Lock, and we don't know who the incoming coach is. We don't know how they feel about Lock. That's a conversation they're going to have with George Payton, and they'll decide that. But for right now, he's the only quarterback under contract for 2022, and we have to assume that he'll return in some capacity.
And that's what I was just going to say. But we do know it will be not just a topic of conversation, but it will be a big talking point. It'll be a big priority for George Payton to find out how each one of these candidates feels about Drew Lock and what would your plan be to get the most out of Drew Lock. Travis Tarbox in the hizzy. Thank you, buddy. He says, evening priests, in Broncos country, I'd like to have either Nathaniel Hackett or Kellen Moore. I realize I'm not choosing, but that's my vote. Totally understand that, my friend. Really, I do. But Kevin O'Connell, don't sleep on him either. Zach Taylor is the probably next most successful Sean McVay acolyte that's making some noise in the NFL. And you know what? Kevin O'Connell, he doesn't call plays per se. All right. So as I've said before, have a little bit of a guarded posture on any coordinator candidate who doesn't call plays for his respective team. But let me tell you what Nathaniel Hackett does do Kevin O'Connell does do for Sean McVay. And that is, he's in charge of the game plan each and every week. Obviously, McVay has big input on that, but he's also juggling many responsibilities of being a head coach. And O'Connell, Zach, turns in the script for the first 15 plays. All right. Now, that's an old Bill Walsh thing, the scripting the first 15 to 18 plays. Mike Shanahan came from that school of thought as well. Gary Kubiak. So does Sean McVay, who, he's kind of like a mix between the Gruden and the the Shanahan scheme, and that's who he trusted, or trusts, I should say, Zach, to put that together.
Yeah, but he has to realize that pretty much every candidate he lined up, or at least on offense, most of them aren't calling plays for their team. So I don't think it bothers him too much. He's looking for someone that, again, can lead a group, but also bring 21st century ideas and offensive creativity to the table. I want to make one point about Dan Quinn, though. I wrote the story earlier today for Heavy. Apparently, Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, they love Dan Quinn and could get aggressive to retain him. So could mean a change in title maybe. It could mean more money. But that also could go for Kellen Moore. So any Broncos fans that wants a Cowboys coordinator, it might be trickier than just convincing him to sign on the dotted line.
And Jerry's got those deep pockets too, right?
Yeah.
So like if he, because I think for most coaches, this is something I think Scott does a good job of bringing up when these subjects are broached. These coaches, if they get a head coaching gig, unlike their salaries, which are considerable for compared to like the average American, what a coordinator makes in the NFL, even the lowliest dude, I mean, it's many fold more than the average American income. But the monies that a head coach gets, it's life-changing. Like Vic Fangio, even if he wasn't in his mid-60s, would never have to work again if he doesn't want to, or his kids, maybe even his kids. So what I'm getting at here is relative to Jerry Jones blocking or trying to incentivize a Dan Quinn and or a Kellen Moore. No. Stick around. Let me tell you something. I don't think a title is going to do it. That'll be like if it happened, it would be like the cherry on top or whatever. It's about the money.
Yeah.
It's about the Quan, right? And Wade Phillips, he wanted the Quan and he felt like he deserved the Quan and he did. John Elway thought, no, come on, dude. You're bragging here about this delicious feast, this cuisine you delivered as a chef when I provided you with the very best ingredients possible. No. Hit the bricks, and he did. Went and became the highest paid, at least I'm going off memory here. At the time, he was the highest paid coordinator in the league under Sean McVay, at least defensive coordinator in that respect. But Zach, the Duchess jumping in, Michaela with a very generous super chat. The ladies of MHH are
amazing
representing. She says, much love, and let's go Broncos. Keep the lights on. You're doing your part. That's for sure, Michaela. Signed, MHH Fantasy Football. Duchess, LOL. Seriously, thank you for all you guys do. She's got a little prize coming her way,
yes,
right?
She does. Yes, she does. It's good. I hope you like it, Michaela. We're still designing it, and we'll get it out to you. But once again, congratulations on a great fantasy season, and can't wait to play with y'all next year.
We'll be in touch about that in the very near future. Trust. Leaf, given the coaches we've kept so far, we're well set to support a first-time offensive-minded coach. What do you think? Yeah, I mean, what offensive coordinator turned first-time head coach, Zach, is going to blink twice at having Mike Munchak coaching their offensive line, or Zach Azani coaching wide receivers, or Curtis Modkins coaching running backs? I mean, those three guys right there are considerable. Now, on the defensive side, like George said, we don't want to take a step back. That's why you've got Ed Donatel on call, ready to stay and keep his NFL abode in the Mile High City. So there are plenty of, just on the coaching side of things, yes, Leaf. I mean, there are a lot of draws for that next head coach. And every insider that I've talked to, every insider that I've heard speak about the Bronco job, it's got a different juice to it than it did last coaching cycle Denver was in it, and even the one before that. The last one Denver was in, all right, where Vic, because when Gary Kubiak stepped down, it was 1 year removed from winning the Super Bowl. It was a very prized opportunity, and yet John Elway only interviewed 3 candidates for the job. Isn't that bizarre? Only interviewed 3 candidates for the job when Gary Kubiak stepped down. It's a prized gig for many reasons, not the least of which, Zach, is the Broncos have retained and are keeping in kind of a holding pattern, a who's who of position coaches.
But I think the operative words in the last comment were so far, because I don't know that every single assistant's going to come back, and it might not be Mike Munchak coaching the OL. He can want to maybe explore greener pastures if they are out there. Some will stick around. Hopefully not Lauren Landau, though. I haven't heard too much about him. They need a total overhaul on their conditioning staff, but Zach Azani, coaches like that, like you mentioned, Curtis Modkins, maybe Ed Donatel for the secondary, Christian Parker. They have a few, Mike Munchak, that are worth retaining, but Peyton also gave them the flexibility to see what else is out there, and they might find something worth exploring.
Michaela wants to know, how do you guys feel about, pardon me, Brian Daboll? I like him. I'm surprised he wasn't one of the first names announced as a guy the Broncos wanted to talk to. Former, oddly enough, Zach, former Patriot. You can argue that he is a disciple of Belichick, although his coordinator chops, like he didn't. Well, I'd have to go back and look at his resume, so I'll forget what I was about to say. But I like him a lot, and of all the coordinators that are in on this head coaching cycle, I think you could argue that he has the most bona fides in terms of QB developer skin on the wall because of what he did to turn the corner with Josh Allen.
At this point, though, they submitted 8 interview requests. I kind of feel like whoever they're going to hire is among that group. I feel like if they wanted someone, we would have heard about that by now. We didn't hear about Daboll. We didn't hear about Doug Peterson. We haven't heard about Leslie Frazier or Jim Caldwell, some of these other reported candidates, maybe Byron Leftwich as well. So there's a good chance the next Broncos head coach is among the 8 reported requests that we've heard so far. And if Daboll is not on there, then that might be an indication that he doesn't want him all that much.
David Wilder, you're a prince, bro. He says, good evening. Could it be that they are requesting interviews of these defensive coordinators to get a feel if they'd be a good fit for defensive coordinator? It's possible, and yes, that plays a part in the motivation for some of these interviews. In the same sense that when the Broncos interviewed Mike Munchak, it was also to kind of test the waters of, hey, if you weren't the guy, would you be down to come here and, assistant coach on some level? So that I think that's part of it, but there are certain guys that are employed as a defensive coordinator, unless they just their boss above them just got canned. Most head coaches are gonna block one of their coordinators leaving for another coordinator gig because it's a lateral move, even if it comes with a raise. So, it's possible, David, but probably not the true source of what's inspiring these requests.
Yeah, you nailed that. I mean, they can't make a lateral move anyway. So maybe for someone like Gerard Mayo, that would be a promotion for him going from positional coach to defensive coordinator. But I think they're getting a feel for the type of men they are, not just on the field, but off the field, the type of individuals they are, their morals, their convictions. That's what George Paton wants as a true leader, and that goes beyond the football field. So it doesn't matter old or young, offense or defense, he's casting a wide net, and he's going to search through that net for the next Broncos coach.
Base Gase, good to see you, bro. One of our OG Super Chat superstars here at MHH. He says, explain to me the Hackett hype, guys. Didn't amount to much in Jacksonville or Buffalo. Non-play caller in Green Bay. Unless we get Rodgers, I'd be out on Hackett. Well, hopefully that little clip that we played from Zach's Twitter helps you understand some of the allure for Hackett. But guys, name me the head coach or head coach candidate at any point in NFL history that hadn't been fired from at least 2 jobs. Honestly. It happens. I mean, they spend more time getting fired, Zach, and moving around than they do, especially when they're assistants. They don't, they're at the mercy of the owners. These head coaches serve at the owner's pleasure, etc., and they're at the mercy of that. They don't have nearly the control because they're not ultimately accountable for the team. They're accountable for their kind of side of whatever their coordinating job is. But yeah, it's a concern. It's definitely warts right on the resume. You want to turn that rock over, see what kind of roly-polies and kind of worms are squiggling around, and make sure that's something you can live with, get some good answers on, hey, help us understand how things ended in those 2 cities, in Buffalo and Jacksonville, and help us understand why that happened, etc. But to me, Zach, it's not a non-starter. The bigger question for me with Hackett is the whole play calling thing. That's more of a concern to me, not so much how it ended for him in Jacksonville or Buffalo.
Yeah, it's a weird criteria to use in your preference for a head coach because you better not want Doug Peterson then, because he got fired after winning a Super Bowl. It happens in the NFL. Coaches get fired. Coaches have falling outs. Doesn't take away their abilities or what they bring to the table, or if they're the right guy for the job. I'm with George Paton. I don't really care ultimately offense or defense. I prefer offense, but the right guy. That's all that matters.
I just think that there are going to be multiple options when you talk about right guys. I think there are multiple options that could, in different vying alternate universes, work right now for the Denver Broncos and be the right guy. Some people will roll their eyes when you say, no, you can't be dogmatic that it's got to be offense. It's got to just be the right guy. You can't limit yourself to just offense. And I understand that, all right? If the Broncos go out and hire another defensive coach after 2 failed stints, not only are they, Zach, flying in the face of their own history, if we're talking about what are the, if you look, the equation that leads to success for the Denver Broncos, one of those factors is offensive-minded head coach, Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak. I mean, even look at Dan Reeves, dude. Dan Reeves, offense, okay, it was very troglodyte type offensive acumen, but drove John Elway crazy back in the day. But nevertheless, not only would they be flying in the face of that, Zach, but they'd be flying in the face of their recent past. That's factor number 2. And modern NFL convention. I just think it would be a massive upset, in my opinion, if the Broncos' next head coach is not an offensive guy. Chris, again, with a massive triple-digit super chat. I had to, do this to my eyes to make sure I was reading that correctly, dude. Thank you so much, bro. He says, I read an article today that interviewed Russell Wilson. He mentioned that he will be staying in Seattle for next season. I guess he's out of the question now. Not sure if you guys heard. He's been saying that for months. So, as I've been telling you guys, I'll be surprised if either Wilson or Rodgers ultimately is allowed by their respective teams to leave. Because look at all the teams right now scrambling for a head coach. You think, cart before the horse. No, you need the head coach first. George Paton, he couldn't answer the question, which one's more important to a team's success, having the quarterback. But let me tell you, coaching cycles come and go every single year. That's cheap. Franchise quarterbacks, that's the rare, precious commodity. Teams that openly and willingly allow one that they have that's proven bona fide franchise guy depart, it almost never happens. And there's a reason for that. So I'll be surprised if either guy ultimately leaves their city, but it doesn't mean I'm not holding out some modicum of hope, Zach.
Yeah, there's the hope that if you hire Dan Quinn, he would recruit Russell Wilson in that scenario. You hire Nathaniel Hackett, he would recruit Aaron Rodgers. But there's also the contract, the salary cap to consider as well. If those respective teams want to make that trade, if those quarterbacks want to be traded to Denver, there's a lot of moving parts that have to fall into place for a blockbuster deal to materialize. It's more likely to me that Pete Carroll leaves Seattle before Russell Wilson. I think I'm with you. I think he stays there. I think he's inclined to stay there. He said he wants to play until he's 40 in Seattle or 45. I don't know how viable that is, but I wouldn't pin all your hopes on George Paton making a blockbuster move for one of those two quarterbacks. He's going to get an upgrade. I don't see him trotting Drew Lock out there as the unquestioned starter, either through the draft or through a trade or a signing. He's going to upgrade at quarterback, but I wouldn't hold your breath completely on that quarterback being A-Rod or Russ.
Travis Weber, you demand. Out of those, Quinn is obvious. Hackett and Moore are most wanted. O'Connell, I find intriguing if he is anything like McVay. Mayo, I didn't even know he is coaching. Yeah, former first-round pick, world champion, Pro Bowler, defensive rookie of the year. A lot of people didn't realize that. Wade Kimball, thank you, buddy. Not going to happen, but I read an opinion piece today, and I can dream, right? The piece in part. How about a Hollywood ending? Bring back Shanahan and Phillips and run it back a few more times. Hashtag MHH for life. Yeah, definitely not going to happen. Mike just got enshrined in the Ring of Fame. Wade, who knows, man, what Wade's wants to do. Would he come back? Do they want him back? You got I think you would have the personnel for the most part to run Phillips' scheme here, minus you need better edge rushers. I mean, the edge rushing talent right now for the Broncos is pretty underwhelming. And your number one guy is Bradley Chubb, and you think, when you say that this time last year, you're like, all right, at least you got a leg to stand on. You got Bradley Chubb, and maybe that's still true, Zach. But the dude made one play for the Broncos in 2021, and I get it. He was sidelined for half the season, but that's another big part of why Chubb is not the piece you hang your hat on when it comes to, do we have an edge rushing presence or not? You got to go heavy on that in the draft, which is another reason why it's in Denver's best interest to either A, land a Rodgers or a Wilson, small chance that happens, or B, if they are not 100% convinced one of those quarterbacks is a day one upgrade over Drew Lock, you go find yourself an insurance policy and you go all in one last year with Drew on his final deal of his rookie contract. And there's going to be half of Broncos fans who aren't going to love that, because he is a polarizing figure, right? I mean, Drew Lock. But in tandem with the right head coach hire, it could be a thing.
I'm going to try to get Wade on the podcast. I'm just throwing it out there. No promises, but I feel like he would talk with us. So I'm going to try to make that happen.
Mike, he says, I'm totally on your wagon, Zach, with coaching excitement.
Freezing.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's happening. Michaela, again, thank you, my friend. She says, get Gerard Mayo and Chad Mustard and tight end. Oh man, then we'd have ourselves a football sandwich, Zach, or the makings of one anyway.
A football hot dog.
She says, so glad Fangio experience is over. MHH forever. Yeah, it's done. No more of this. Actually, for Vic, it's this. Right? This is Vic. It's a little more comforting when you put the hands in the armpits.
He's checking for lumps, Chad.
Maybe. I don't know. There's something about it. I don't know.
You mentioned Gerard, and I thought of 300 because of Gerard Butler and just kicking Fangio into the hole, getting rid of him once and for all. Yeah, that's where my mind went.
Denver. Boom. Carla, the ladies of MHH flexing hard tonight. She says,
thank you.
Could George Payton casting a big net his way be his way of doing some preliminary interviews for OC and DC? Another kind of question on that tack. Definitely, you're doing your due diligence because you never know. But again, you got to remember, there's only one position coach that's being considered, and that's Gerard Mayo. So he could, what, guys? He probably is the guy that they're bringing in, and who knows? They're open to the possibility of him blowing them away in the interview. But more than likely, he's the guy that they're going, you know what? This would be a nice option to have on the back burner for defensive coordinator for the head coach we ultimately hire.
Chad, I was thinking about it earlier. Didn't they try to do this in 2019, though? Wasn't one of the candidates they talked to, was it Zach Taylor at that point, or was he a coordinator?
He was a quarterback's coach.
I feel like maybe it was him. I feel like they were trying to pair one of the candidates with the other, but you can't make lateral moves. So the only one in the cycle right now that they want to talk to is Mayo, who's a positional coach, and going from that to coordinator would be a promotion. Could be, but I think first and foremost is finding the head coach and going from there.
Moss Def. Mike Reno, I'm excited we aren't going after a draft quarterback this year since there aren't any top-tier guys. Tired of Band-Aid fixes. Let's wait for 23 draft to pick our guy. Well, I wouldn't say with any kind of absolute certainty the Broncos aren't going to draft a quarterback. That is to be determined. All I'm telling you is, because it is something of a lackluster class overall, if you're not convinced the guy that you're in a position to draft is a day one upgrade over Drew, then you're better off going with Drew and using that pick on the next Patrick Surtain at edge, or the next Patrick Surtain type impact player at right tackle, or whatever, someone that can help you win. And again, for those of you that are kind of anti-Drew, and I totally understand it, okay? You're like, it's like Nick was talking about on this morning's Broncos for Breakfast. I'm just tired of this average to below average rigmarole BS at quarterback for the Denver Broncos. I want a real bona fide solution. I totally get that. But Drew Lock paired with a Nathaniel Hackett, a Kevin O'Connell, an Eric Bieniemy, you don't know what the limits of that might be. I have more than reason to believe, it is my opinion, that where Drew Lock currently sits in his development relative, Zach, to what his potential is 90% a result of the coaching staff that's been here since he arrived as a second-round pick.
Yeah, I don't know where the perception began where it's fait accompli they're going to acquire Rodgers or Russell Wilson. That's a huge bombshell deal that doesn't get made too often at the NFL level. So
Almost never.
I think George Payton would stick his nose in, and he'll always be aggressive but not reckless, and he's proven that so far with the head coaching interviews. If it's too prohibitive, he's not going to make that trade. I mean, the cap hits, the money he has to pay out, the guarantees that he would take on, but more importantly, the capital that you would give up for a quarterback of that magnitude. And again, Seattle and Green Bay would have to want to trade them, and Rodgers and Wilson would have to want to come to Denver. It's a really complicated deal. So it might be a case where they don't like anyone else. They don't like the Cousins of the world, the Matt Ryans of the world, the Garoppolos of the world. He might say, F it, I'll just get my quarterback through the draft. I have my head coach now who can develop that guy, whether it's a Bieniemy, whether it's a Hackett, Kellen Moore, whoever. Let's go pair him with a rookie quarterback and go to work.
Nathan, good to see you, my friend. It's been a minute. Where you been, big dog? We've missed you. He says, can we pry Bisaccia for special teams coordinator? It's definitely a possibility. Although whoever the Raiders ultimately hire as their permanent head coach, man, you gotta make sure Bisaccia is one of the candidates in that interview. But if he loses out, whoever that head coach is would be absolutely idiotic to allow him to walk out the building with the job he's done. I mean, the Raiders made the freaking playoffs, dude. Swept the Broncos, made the playoffs. This dude was thrust into a very precarious, high-pressure situation. This dude made some hay, man. Credit to him. Credit to him.
Coaching. And I think he proved that. And what a game last night. Did you watch the game last night, Chad?
I did not.
Raiders?
I did not.
Wow,
I've seen the highlight. I've seen the highlight package, but I didn't watch it live.
That's a classic right there. But you know what? He had enough fortitude to guide his team through adversity, and they nailed the game-winning field goal. He's going to the playoffs. You would have to at least increase his title. I don't know if he was assistant head coach before the promotion after Gruden got fired, but I would at least make him that. I would pay him a lot more money. He has really stabilized that ship over there, and it kind of proves Peyton's point. It doesn't matter whether you're offensive, defensive, special teams. If you can do it, I want you to do the job.
Zach, we're about out of time, so if you could rapid fire the answer for Wyatt here. He wants to know, My good buddy is a Cowboys fan, doesn't have high praise for Kellen Moore. Brought up under Jason Garrett, who had stale offenses. He says that Moore has no creativity, and the offensive stars in Dallas struggle way too much. Can't make changes when the game plan isn't working. In other words, failing to adjust. What are your thoughts?
Well, there's some truth to the fact that Vic Fangio really exposed Dallas's offense in the Week 9 meeting. He kind of gave the NFL the quote-unquote blueprint as to how to stifle Dak Prescott, all the receiving weapons, Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, all they can do on offense. That was my worry I brought up earlier about him being groomed under Jason Garrett and taking on that vanilla personality. But in terms of creativity, I have a video on my Twitter chat. If you want to play it or not, it doesn't matter. But his game planning and his play calling, he gets a little too cute sometimes. I know that's annoying, but what he brings to the table for any given opponent, what he brings to the table for any given down is light years ahead of what the Broncos have had since Peyton Manning has been on the field. I would not cry at all if Kellen Moore was the next Broncos coach at all.
Doug Raquel, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you. We mean that. Appreciate you, my friend. Travis Tarbox, looking forward to all things this offseason brings to Broncos country. It's going to be a whirlwind. We get the coaching cycle, then we get the pre-draft trail, then we get the free agent rumors, then we get more draft, then we get the draft. This is, people when they meet me and they find out what I do for a living, right? People that my neighborhood or whatever, they can't comprehend that I have work to do after the football season ends. And then when I tell them, no, my favorite part of this job is January through May, they go blank. And you try and explain it to them, unless they're nerds like us and like everyone in this chat, goes over their head. DeAngelis, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, they think football season stops after the Super Bowl, but it's just getting started for the next year. And there really is no sleep when you cover this sport, play in the sport. If you're around football in any capacity, it's a year-round business. I love it. I live for it, Chad. It pays my bills. It puts food on my table, and I'm blessed to do it every day. As are you. You feel that way as well. It's love it. Can't get enough.
Most definitely, and a lot of that is thanks to you guys. Mike Reno, I'm going back to this again, but look at John Elway's career stats. Not great. We need a quarterback with heart, and he might actually be on the team if he ever gets developed correctly by a competent coaching staff, my opinion. Yeah, I mean, Drew Lock there's still some potential there that could be unlocked by the right coach. Doug Raquel, truthfully, I have no favorite for coaches. I just want Lock to get a fair shot with a good tutor. I think Lock will get a fair shot, to be honest with you, because I think Peyton's kind of in his corner. And by kind of, I mean, I think Peyton is more than just open to the idea that Drew still has some there. Cody Dubb, I would think George would make a good decision on a head coach. He's going to have a really pissed off fan base, and I don't think he wants that. Oh yeah, well he guaranteed it, Cody. In case you missed it, he guaranteed they're going to get this hire right. So that, and whether he ends up, he's not clairvoyant. He doesn't have a crystal ball, but he's a leader, Zach, as I talked about last night, unafraid of putting high expectations on himself. It's like I'm watching this new quick anecdote. We're long here, so we got to hustle. But I'm watching this new documentary on Joe Montana, and it's on Peacock. All right, the streaming service Peacock for NBC. All right. Question, Joe, what do you miss most about being a player? Didn't even think about it, dude. The pressure. He missed the pressure. All right. So that's an attribute. When I see George Payton openly, the wisdom of it, only time will tell. But when I see him willingly putting a guarantee that I'm going to turn this ship around, this coaching hire is going to be what this team needs, to me, that's very encouraging that the Broncos indeed have the right guy. And in conjunction, Zach, with what we saw him do in free agency in the draft last year, I'm not really doubting him right now.
I mean, all the feedback that I've seen on Twitter has been very, very positive for the candidates because he gets it. He just gets it. You either get it or you don't. And he sees which way the NFL is going, and that's why he's talking to the brains behind some of the best offenses in the entire NFL. So anyone from this candidate pool, maybe with the exception of Aaron Glenn or Jonathan Gannon, I think most Broncos fans would get behind.
Andre, thank you for the super sticker. Scott, real quick, I'm going to grab this one from Twitch from Savage Boy Kev. Did you guys see McVay run on the field to celebrate with his players? Touchdown mid-game. Love that dude's energy. A great leader. Yes, I did. And that's not necessarily exactly that kind of moxie or juice is needed in Denver, but a type of energy, Zach, that's powerful enough to exercise this malaise of a demon. That's what's needed.
Sean McVay's a unicorn. He's young, he's a great play caller, and he's full of life. You get one or of the three usually, maybe not even any of them. Vic Fangio wasn't any of them in my opinion. Sean McVay's a great coach. We hope the Broncos can find the next Sean McVay.
Colby, ever since the last Raiders loss, I was mad as HE double hockey sticks. I feel 1,000% better now. With all the talent we have retained, hopefully next season is a different story. Indeed, bro. Indeed. Let's see here. Lawrence Rivera, what if we went after the Green Bay OC since Aaron Rodgers loves him, then get Kyle Shanahan as our offensive coach? Kyle Shanahan, dude's got himself a job, my friend. But yeah, if you land Hackett, one of the side benefits to that is it might give you a better chance if he gets dangled Aaron Rodgers.
Speaking of Kyle, though, a quick little aside. Today he said that Dan Quinn, for what it's worth, is the best defensive mind he's ever game planned against, or something along those lines. So another feather in Dan Quinn's cap if you're on that boat.
Yeah, but he also used to kind of, I was about to say sign his checks, but work for him, right? He used to work for him. Relo Takeover, I hope Hackett wins. I think that West Coast system would fit well with the offense. Well, and that's another thing about Quinn, too. I know you talked about Hackett. We both like Hackett as an option, but if Quinn gets hired, his offensive coach is going to be a West Coast guy that you can trust. Lawrence Rivera, Dayball, or Bieniemy. Gun to my head, that's Dayball, and it's not even – I don't even have to think about that.
Bieniemy is another one, though, where if you've seen like NFL films or sideline footage, he's interacting with his players unlike Vic. He's very fired up. He's a good in-the-moment teacher. I would not mind it at all. Any one of these guys, Chad, these four offensive coordinators, you really can't go wrong with. You can make the case that they're the right guy.
Appreciate that. The brain, Jacob Foster as well. Appreciate you guys. Brainstorm. If we cannot beat them, join them. Eric Bieniemy. Yes, indeed. Jacob Foster, you the man.
If you can't
Dave
beat him,
Glassman,
kidnap
you the
him.
man.
Don't let him go.
Wade Kimball, I say we keep Locke, get a good QB coach, cultivate him. Use our picks on defense, edge rushers, go after Wade Phillips, let him do what he does best, turn our defense loose on the NFL in 22. Hey, we'll see, buddy. We'll see. It's not a plan I hate. Leaf Roebuck, I'm grateful for the MHH crew. Talk us through the ups and downs. With only one blue chip quarterback actually moving this year, Watson, and a weak draft, who's the veteran that comes to compete with Drew? Man, that's a good question, Leaf, but it's not one we have enough time to fully analyze because, we could pull up Over the Cap or Spot Rack and look at the full list of names, but everyone that you think could maybe make a difference is under contract with the current team in 2022, and everyone else, it's the leavings. So it's a Teddy type guy. That's why if you don't win the Wilson or Rogers sweepstakes and you don't feel in your gut one of these quarterbacks in the class is a day one upgrade, you just go in on Drew. You get yourself an insurance policy, one of those, a Teddy type, Zach, but you do that one last year. All right. Friendly Giant, where do you guys think quarterbacks like Matt Corral, Kenny Pickett, etc. would have gone in last year's draft? That's a good question. Maybe Corral still late round one, but he probably ends up as a second round pick. Corral will go in the first round this year, though. But a lot of those guys, hey, you're subscribing to the right channel, boys and girls, because in not just a couple weeks' time, Scott Kennedy is going to be at the Senior Bowl, and just about every name that is in the hat this year is going to be there except Corral.
Well, I would say that those guys would be barely at the bottom of round one, maybe even not the top of round two. But in this year's draft, they're probably likely, if not guaranteed, to be in the top half of round one. That's the difference in the talent level, so to speak. But again, if George has conviction that one of those guys is better than anything else he can do this offseason, and by the way, Deshaun's not going anywhere until those lawsuits or allegations are cleared up. He's untouchable right now. Yeah.
Radioactive. Brandon, your thoughts?
For.
And Brandon, thank you, dude. Another newer name. I know you've supported us in the past, but really appreciate you. Your guys' thoughts on Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell as a coaching candidate? I like him, Zach.
I do too. You just wonder, is he a little too green still? Does he need a couple years? Is it because of working under Sean McVay? Those are the questions you have, but again, I would love the change of pace going from someone like Vic Fangio, 60 years old, to someone like Kevin O'Connell, who's what? 30?
36 as well. A lot of 36s on this list for whatever reason. Jermaine, appreciate you. Do you think that the Raiders did the Chargers dirty? I think the Raiders pulled the Raider. Zach, your thoughts?
I don't think that playing for a tie and agreeing to kneel the football and punt the football for 60 minutes is good for the sport. You play to win the game. Words to Herm Edwards. It's true. You play to win the game. They're divisional foes. Playoffs are on the line. I like the fact that the Raiders had the, again, fortitude to go for the kill shot and go for the win. And you know what? They're in the playoffs now, and the Chargers aren't. That's the business.
Amen. By the way, Jacob, you've been throwing down. Jacob Foster on Facebook. We see you, big dog. Thank you very much. But Zach, with that, let's bounce on out of here.
Yeah, this was the Huddle Up Podcast, guys. We'll be back on Wednesday at the normal time for more from us. But in the meantime, follow us on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You can follow Chad on Twitter at Chad and Jensen. You can follow myself at Kelberman NFL. Follow Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. If you want a beanie, if you want a hat, if you want a shirt, hoodie, coffee cup, all right there, huddleuppod.com. And I ask you again, guys, go to facebook.com/MileHighHuddle. Become a supporter, big blue button. You get exclusive access to our premium content, Kelberman's Corner, Broncos Book Club, and Trickle Zone each and every week. And facebook.com/MileHighHuddlePod. Like that page and follow that page. If you haven't, go to Apple Podcasts, please, and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some swag each and every month. We're giving away rotating items each and every single month. If you can't do any of those things, do these 3 things, though, please, guys, subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHA channel. Helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
And we just crossed 13,000 subs on YouTube. Much love and respect to all of you, and a special thank you and welcome to our new subscribers. Great to have you. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to these supporters, these super supporters on Facebook. The way it finished tonight, Jacob Foster at the top, followed closely by Andrew Baker and Doug Raquel, Travis Weber, Leaf Roebuck, Mike Reno, Colby, Jermaine, Jeremy, Travis, Tarbox, Phil McLaughlin, David Wilder, DeAngelis, Julio, Eric Weber, Wyatt Horning, Dave Glassman, and Lawrence Rivera. And guys, we got to give you an update, let you know where things stand on the super chat side of things. All right. At the top remains Ethan, aka DWI, guys, at number 1. Christopher Gaspari at 2, and he's probably going to maintain his 2 after tonight. DWI guys, though, I can tell you there's some ground to be made up there. Robbie Nunzi went from 4 to 3 after last night. The Duchess still in the top 5 at 4, and then Dale, aka DW96734, at 5. So appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to go to manscaped.com. Use the code MHH for 20% off plus free shipping, and we will see y'all on Wednesday, as Zach said.
It's good stuff, guys. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.